It's Miss Roseann's Sunday School. Won't you join in? We'll learn about the Bible, Jesus forgiving sins. Though the world is scary, God will see you through. Keep loving your neighbors just as God keeps loving you.
Miss Roseann here. Thank you for tuning in to Ascension Kids Sunday School online. We miss being with you every week at church, and we think about you each day. Now, every Sunday, we have been giving a special hello to one or two of you, or sometimes it's someone's birthday. So today, we want to feature our friend Sienna. Sienna is turning 6 on this upcoming Friday, July 24th. Let's say happy birthday to Sienna. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Sienna! For today's story, we are continuing with stories of the Old Testament. Now Noah had children, and those children had children, and those children had children, and one day a baby boy named Abram was born. And today we are going to learn about what happened when that baby boy Abram grew up. God actually made a very big promise to him. But first, I have 3 questions I want you to think about, so when you're listening to the story, you can listen carefully for the answers. The first question is, what did God tell Abram to do? The second question is, what promise did God give to Abram? And the third question is, God changed Abram's name. What did God change it to? And why did he change his name? That was kind of like a fourth question. So think about those questions. We're going to go in the backyard so our brains can get in gear and we can be really good thinkers. So let's go do some exercises and then we'll come back and finish the story. Come on. Welcome to the backyard. I'm ready to exercise. You know, all through history, things have been really hard. Today, if we want some food, we just go down the street or get in the car and go to a supermarket. Everything is there for us. Oranges, vegetables, apples, meat, very easy. But you know what? A long time ago, throughout history, people had to grow all of their food. They had to plant seeds, and they had to wait for those seeds to become plants. Then they had to harvest those plants. Then they had to use those plants to make their bread and other things that they were going to make. Very hard. When we need water, all we have to do is go to our kitchen or bathroom sink and turn on hot or cold. But all through history, especially in the times of the Bible, people had to go to natural springs and collect their water, or they had to dig really big holes to find water to make a well. And then for clothes, they didn't have clothing stores. No, they had to use some of the plants that they raised to make cloth, or they had to use the skin of animals that they hunted to dry those out and make their clothes. Life was so hard. They didn't have Amazon.com to just click and something would come. And guess what? The people there didn't even have to go to gyms or jog or exercise because their whole life was exercising, raising the animals and planting and harvesting the fields of crops and making cloth. Everything in life was hard work. It was all hard exercise. But today we have to go to gym because we don't have to do any of that. We have to exercise, all of us, little kids, adults, we have to exercise. So today we are going to do some exercises of people of Bible times. So I'm going to go ahead and do the motions of the exercise. And then you at home are going to do it with me. And then guess what we're doing. You okay? Are you ready? Awesome. Here's the first one. What did we do? What did you do? What exercise was that? That was going to the well and collecting our water and then a short journey, they had long journeys, journeying home with that water. Good job. Okay, here's our second chore of people, what they did in biblical times. Here we go. What did we just do? If you guessed harvest the field with a tool, you may have not known it was a sickle, but you are right. People had to cut all of the wheat or whatever the crops were that they grew in order to use them. Now for our third chore, which has something to do with the wheat we just harvested. Here we go. What did we just do? Did you guess that we mixed and shaped and, no, start again. What did we just do? Did you guess that we made bread? If you guessed that, you are correct. First, we mixed the ingredients, then we kneaded the dough, then we shaped the dough, and then we put it in the oven. Good job. So for our fourth chore, we have a prop, a shepherd's staff. Having this prop here will probably help you immediately guess what I am going to do in this chore. Here goes. We are ready for the fourth chore exercise of biblical times. And for this one, I have this prop, a shepherd's staff. And so you probably know what we're going to do, but I'm not going to tell you until the end. Here goes. Did you guess that people in biblical times had to herd their sheep? If you guessed that, you are correct. They had to take care of all of the animals that they had with them. Their animals provided them with food, but also with clothing, cloth. Okay, for our last chore, this might be something that you did in school using different materials than they did at Bible times. Okay, here we go. What is Miss Roseann doing? It would take a long time to do these things, namely to make baskets. Baskets were used, they didn't have plastic bags or canvas bags. Everything was put in jugs or baskets. So these had to be made, many of them had to be made. They also had to make their clothes and do weaving on a loom. So now it's time for us to go back inside and listen to the story of God calls Abraham. Let's go. So today's story is called God Calls Abraham. Our story begins with a man named Abram, who, as I said before, was a great-great-great-grandchild of Noah. Abram's wife was named Sarai. Now, when Abram was about 75 years old, the Lord said to Abram, "Go with your family from your country to the land that I will show you." Abram trusted God. He knew that he belonged to God, and God would do what he promised. So Abraham obeyed and went out as the Lord had told him. He took Sarai, his wife, Lot, his brother's son, that's Abram's nephew, and other people who were their helpers. They gathered all their possessions. Possessions are things like animals and tents and blankets, things that they owned. So they packed all of those things, their pots, their pans, and loaded them onto the camels. And they set out to go to the land of Canaan. When they arrived, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your children I will give this land." God went on to promise Abram and Sarai that he would bless them with children, and that the people who would come from his children and grandchildren would share in this promise of God's blessing. So when they arrived, they set up their tents and they began to live there, their new home that God had given to them. And as time passed, Abraham kept remembering God's promise. But Abraham and Sarai didn't even have one child. And they were even too old to have children. Abram wondered about these things. Abram asked God how his promise would happen since he did not have any children and they were old. God told him to trust him and not to be afraid. He told Abram to look at the night sky with all the stars. God said, "Abram, look up at the heavens and count the stars." There were so many stars, it was impossible for Abram to count them. God told Abram that so many people would come from his children, his grandchildren, that no one would be able to count them either, just like the stars in the sky. Later on, God promised Abram and Sarai that they would have a baby boy named Isaac. Abram believed God. He knew that he and Sarai belonged to God, and God called them to trust and obey him. Abraham knew that God would give them a precious child, even in their old age. God made a special promise to Abram. Abram, you shall be the father of nations. Many children will come from you, and I will be their God. With this promise, or covenant, God changed Abram's name to Abraham, because Abraham means the father of many. God later on would also change Sarai's name to Sarah. Our loving God always keeps his promises. God sent his son later on through the family of Abraham, his son, the Lord Jesus, to save his people from their sin. Jesus was born into Abraham's family. All those who believe in Jesus are in Abraham's family. You are in Abraham's family. And there are more people in this family than we can count, just as God said when he was pointing to the stars in the sky. All through our Bible stories, we keep learning that God's people trusted him to keep God's promises. We've learned that Adam and Eve, Noah, and now Abraham put their faith in God. We trust God when we believe what he says. We obey God when we do what he commands. We can count on God to give us the faith we need to do what he says, just as Abraham did. Were you able to think about and answer the 3 questions, actually the 4 questions that I asked earlier? I think you probably did a great job. Let's go through them. The first question was, what did God tell Abram to do? Did you say that God told Abram to go to the land of Canaan with his family, to move everything and go there, and he would promise all of his children that land? If you said that, you are right. The second question is, what promise did God give Abram? Now, every week we have been talking about promises, and there is another word that means promise called covenant. God made a special covenant with Abram that he would be the father of many, that his children or his descendants would be like the stars in the sky. There would be so many. He promised that even when Abram did not even have one child yet. But God keeps his promises. And the third question is, God changed Abram's name. What did he change it to? What did you say? You are right. Abraham, which means what? I heard you. Yes, the father of many. So every week, all the materials for the lesson is on our website, www.discoverascension.net, and go on Sunday School Online and the Resources tab. And there you will find all the things, even for this week, God calls Abraham. One of the things you'll find is materials for the template for the craft. The Lord gives us faith. And it's a little banner that you can put streamers on and a piece of yarn, just like this. And every week we have our take-home sheet with the summary of the story that you can have mom or dad read it to you again and do the exercises. And here's a maze of Abraham going to the land of Canaan. Here they are. Now, here there's also a little booklet that says God keeps his promises, where you stick this over there and then you do some activities over there. Our Bible verse for today is, by faith, Abraham obeyed. Now, this is from the New Testament. Hebrews 11, verse 8. Let's say that again. By faith, Abraham obeyed. Hebrews 11:8. Thank you for joining us for Ascension Kids for this week. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.